Hey there, Silver Recaps here. Watch out. This is the story of a husband and wife who deeply love each other but are habitual liars. Neither of them knows anything about the other's job. But when they finally uncover the truth about each other's profession, they turn into mortal enemies. At the beginning of the story, we see John and Jane, a married couple, sitting in front of a marriage counselor. Their relationship is on the rocks, and nothing seems to be going right in their married life. They can't even remember the exact year they got married. Was it 6 years ago or 7? And they're equally clueless about the last time they were intimate with each other. The counselor asks them, "Where did you two first meet?" And with that, the story dives into a flashback. John and Jane are at a hotel where the police are rounding up solo travelers. Since both of them are alone, they quickly claim to be together to avoid getting caught. This clever move sparks a conversation between them, and their newfound acquaintance soon blossoms into friendship, which eventually turns into love. John tells Jane that he works in the construction industry as a contractor, while Jane says she's an IT professional. After just 6 weeks of dating, they decide to get married. However, over time, their love begins to fade, giving way to conflicts and misunderstandings. One night, Jane receives a phone call, prompting her to get ready to leave. As she's heading out, John asks, "Where are you going?" Jane responds, "A server's down and I need to fix it." But instead of going to fix a server, she arrives at a hotel, posing as a call girl. There, she encounters a man and kills him before slipping away, unnoticed. This is when it becomes clear that Jane has been lying to John about where she was going and what she does. Meanwhile, on another front, we see John entering a club where he starts playing poker with 3 other men. When their 4th partner arrives, John swiftly kills all 4 of them and leaves the scene. It becomes evident that he was waiting for the 4th man so he could eliminate them all at once. This reveals that John, just like Jane, has been lying about his true profession. Later one night, as John and Jane are lying in bed, John receives a phone call. Jane asks him, "Who was it?" John replies, "It was from the Atlanta office. There's an issue at the dam, and I need to go there for a few days." The next day, we see John arriving at an office and talking to a woman online. The woman informs him that the DI agency has a man in custody who poses a threat to their organization. She explains that DI is planning to hand this man over to another agency. John's mission is clear. Under no circumstances should the man be transferred to the other agency. On the other hand, it is revealed that Jane also works for a secret agency. Coincidentally, she is given the exact same mission, to ensure that the man in custody does not get handed over to the other agency. This means that both John and Jane, unbeknownst to each other, are secret agents working for rival agencies with the same objective. The next day, Jane arrives at the designated spot before anyone else and strategically places explosives all around the area. While waiting, she notices someone approaching. It's John, but due to the distance, she doesn't recognize him. Jane assumes he's just an ordinary person who has mistakenly wandered into the area. Her concern grows as she realizes the explosives she planted might detonate prematurely, especially since the vehicles carrying the target are still far away from the ambush spot. Through her binoculars, Jane sees the man, John, retrieving a small cannon-like weapon from his vehicle, preparing to aim it at the incoming convoy. In that moment, she realizes this is no ordinary man. He's also an agent. However, Jane still doesn't recognize John because of the distance. Assuming him to be a threat, she fires a shot at him. The bullet hits John, causing him to fall, but he's unharmed as he's wearing a bulletproof jacket. Realizing he's under attack, John shifts his cannon's aim toward the direction the shot came from. John fires the cannon, targeting Jane's location. The blast completely destroys Jane's cover, and the explosives she had carefully planted detonate prematurely. The sudden explosion alerts DI, who quickly realizes that something is wrong. In the chaos, they abort the transfer and leave with their target, ensuring his safety. As a result, both John and Jane fail their mission, each unaware of the other's involvement. The next day, Jane arrives at her office, where her boss sternly tells her, "You must eliminate the man who was there. You have 48 hours to find and kill him. We cannot afford to let anyone learn about our agency or the fact that you work for us." Jane agrees, saying, "All right, I'll handle it." Meanwhile, John examines the aftermath of the failed mission and discovers a broken laptop at the scene. The laptop belongs to Jane, though he doesn't know it yet. When John has the laptop analyzed, it reveals an office address. Intrigued, John decides to investigate. When John arrives at the address, he discovers it's Jane's office. Piecing things together, John starts to suspect that Jane isn't a software engineer, as she claims to be, but is, in fact, an agent working for a secret organization. On the other hand, Jane receives video footage from the failed mission. While the video doesn't clearly show John's face, certain details make her suspicious that it might be him. Both are now on edge, harboring doubts about each other. That evening, John and Jane meet for dinner, both trying to act normal while hiding their suspicions. When Jane serves John a drink, he becomes wary, thinking it might be poisoned. Instead of drinking it, he discreetly pours it into a nearby plant pot. Jane notices this and realizes he's suspicious of her. Throughout the dinner, small but deliberate actions escalate the tension. When John offers Jane a drink, he pretends to accidentally knock over the bottle, but Jane catches it skillfully, revealing her alertness. She then intentionally drops the bottle herself and says, "I'll grab a cloth to clean this up." Underneath the polite facade, both are now certain of the truth. They are agents working for rival agencies. As Jane excuses herself, she heads to her room while John rushes to his own room to grab his gun. Both are preparing for a confrontation. John searches for Jane with his gun drawn, but suddenly hears the sound of a car engine starting. He realizes Jane has taken the car and fled the house. John chases after Jane in his car, determined to catch up with her. During the pursuit, John accidentally fires his gun and the bullet hits the windshield of Jane's car. Jane panics, thinking John is deliberately trying to kill her. John manages to block her path by standing in front of her car, trying to stop her. "We need to talk," he yells. But Jane, unwilling to stop, accelerates instead. John quickly leaps onto the hood of her moving car, still shouting, "We need to figure this out." Jane, unfazed, jumps out of the moving car, leaving it to crash with John still inside. The vehicle spins out of control and John barely escapes before it crashes. Both are left in shock. After 6 years of marriage, they've just discovered each other's real identities as rival agents. That night, they each retreat to separate safe houses, staying with friends to process the revelation. The next morning, Jane returns to their home. In a calculated move, she gathers all of John's belongings and leaves with them. When John discovers that Jane has taken all his stuff, his frustration peaks. He tracks her down to her office, ready to confront her. John, knowing he can't take the direct route to Jane's office without being intercepted, devises an alternate path. Meanwhile, Jane and her team get wind of John's impending arrival. In a panic, they begin deleting all sensitive data from their system to prevent him from accessing it. Just as Jane is about to escape with her team, John arrives at the scene and holds her at gunpoint. Despite being cornered, Jane remains defiant. She uses a rope to escape through the window, scaling down the building. John could shoot her, but he hesitates, choosing not to pull the trigger. Once Jane reaches the other side of the building, John shouts after her, "You're scared, aren't you?" Jane ignores him and escapes, leaving John behind. While searching Jane's office, John finds key documents that reveal the organization she works for. Using this intel, he tracks down their headquarters. Jane quickly learns of his move and sets a trap. When John arrives at the building and enters an elevator, Jane contacts him through the intercom system. "Leave the city now, or I'll blow up the elevator," she warns. The elevator is already high above the ground, and the threat is real. John, unfazed, responds, "I'm not leaving." Jane counters, "I'll count to 5. If you don't answer my question correctly by then, I'll detonate the elevator." She begins counting, 5, 4. But then, instead of continuing the countdown, she starts distracting him with conversation, buying time. Just when John thinks she might spare him, Jane abruptly says, "Goodbye." One of her team members, who has been waiting for her signal, detonates the elevator. Though Jane didn't finish her reverse countdown, when she says goodbye, one of her teammates interprets it as the signal to detonate the elevator. The elevator plummets to the ground with a deafening crash. As the explosion echoes through the building, Jane realizes what has happened and angrily confronts her teammate, saying, "What did you do?" The teammate replies, "You said goodbye." Jane rushes to the site where the elevator crashed, overwhelmed with a mix of regret and shock. Later that evening, Jane is seen sitting in a dimly lit restaurant, the very place where John had proposed to her years ago. She's sipping wine, her eyes brimming with tears, and her glass nearly empty. Suddenly, someone approaches her, gently takes her hand, and begins pouring more wine into her glass. Jane freezes, immediately recognizing the familiar touch. It's John. John sits across from her, unscathed, and they begin to talk. What starts as a tense conversation quickly turns into a heated exchange. They blame each other for their marriage's collapse. Jane accuses John of knowing she was an agent all along and trying to exploit her for information. Meanwhile, John counters, saying he suspected she knew his identity and was using him the whole time. Despite their mutual accusations, the tension between them evolves into a passionate dance. Both are fully aware of their respective missions. Their agencies have given them just 48 hours to eliminate each other. But even in this moment of clarity, their emotions run high. Jane, in a calculated move, deceives John and escapes, heading straight to their shared home. John follows her back, and what ensues is an all-out battle. The house turns into a war zone, with bullets flying and furniture destroyed. In a climactic moment, both of them end up pointing their guns at each other, but John breaks the silence, saying, "I can't kill you." Jane, moved by his words, lowers her weapon, and both realize that despite everything, they still have deep feelings for each other. Overcome with emotion, they kiss passionately, leading to a moment of intimacy. Their passionate reunion is interrupted by a loud knock on the door. Startled, they stop and peek outside, only to find neighbors and police officers. The commotion had alarmed the neighbors, who assumed there was a serious fight happening in the house. When John and Jane open the door, they present themselves as a happy, united couple. John jokingly says, "We were just busy." The neighbors chuckle, relieved, and leave. Now that Jane and John are together, they begin to talk openly and process the chaos around them. However, their brief moment of peace is shattered when agents from both of their respective agencies launch an attack on them. Their agencies, now aware of their alliance, are determined to eliminate them as traitors. The attack results in a massive explosion that completely destroys their home. Despite the devastation, John and Jane manage to escape unscathed. They jump into a car and speed away. As they drive, John confesses something unexpected. "I've been married before. It was a drunken mistake." Jane, furious at this revelation, snaps back, "Seriously? And you're telling me this now?" In the heat of the moment, Jane also reveals, "I'm an orphan." John looks confused and asks, "Then who gave you away at the wedding?" She smirks and replies, "He was a hired actor." Despite their personal conflicts, they decide to keep moving. They stop at a restaurant where they meet Eddie, one of John's oldest friends and a fellow agent working for the same agency as John. Eddie warns them, "If you two stay together, you won't survive. Your agencies are sworn enemies. They'll stop at nothing to take you both out." Eddie then tells them that the only way to protect themselves is to find the man who was the target of their last mission, the person both their agencies are desperately after. Jane and John agree that this is their only option to stay alive. They track the target to a heavily guarded building. Working together seamlessly, Jane and John use their combined skills to infiltrate the building. After a tense operation filled with close calls and action, they manage to capture the man and kidnap him, taking him to a secure location. John and Jane interrogate the man they captured, demanding to know why their companies wanted him dead. Initially, he refuses to speak, but after some intense threats, he confesses the shocking truth. "It's not me they want dead, it's you two. Your companies found out that you're married and living under the same roof. That makes you a massive liability for both agencies. The mission you were sent on wasn't about killing me. It was a setup to make you kill each other." John, suspicious, examines the man's belt and finds an electronic transmitter embedded in it. Realizing it's been broadcasting their location, they quickly understand that their agencies know where they are. Almost instantly, agents from both organizations swarm the area. John and Jane make a narrow escape, running into a nearby store filled with weapons. Armed to the teeth, they prepare for a final showdown. When the agents storm the store, a massive battle erupts. Bullets fly, explosives detonate, and the store becomes a war zone. But despite being outnumbered, John and Jane fight side by side, using their combined skills to eliminate all the agents. After the dust settles, the story cuts back to where it all began. John and Jane sitting in front of the marriage counselor. They've come clean to each other about every lie they told during their marriage, and their relationship has finally reached a place of honesty and trust. Their marriage is now stronger than ever, and they've even rebuilt their home. When the counselor repeats the question from the beginning, "When was the last time you were intimate?" John confidently answers, rating their intimacy a perfect 10 out of 10. The couple smiles, clearly happy and very much in love. The movie ends with their new blissful life, but an alternate ending reveals another twist. John and Jane have moved to Rome and now have a child. Their child shows extraordinary skills just like theirs, hinting that their legacy as secret agents lives on. How did you like this thrilling and action-packed story? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. We hope you enjoyed it.